right, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Sarah Howitt. I am the Australian Clinic Success and Onboarding Star at Nookal. I am a qualified physio with over 17 years of clinical experience and 10 years of running my own physio practice. I've worked in pelvic health, exercise and sports science, and I have a special interest in injury prevention for endurance athletes. Today, I am joined by special guests, David Gahan, an exercise physiologist from Allsports, Physiotherapy, and Denis Giguere, a physiotherapist and clinical manager and educator with the University of Queensland. Our topic today is exceeding patient expectations in clinical spaces and looking at how technology can transform the overall patient experience. Both are young and well-renowned practitioners in their field, so we're really looking forward to hearing some of their secrets to see what keeps them motivated and makes them high performers. We would love for you, our audience, to join the discussion by submitting questions in the chat box at any stage. We'll do our best to cover those questions throughout the session, but we've also set aside some time at the end for some Q&As. All right, so I'm going to start with David. David, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, your experience, your expertise?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me. I guess, as you mentioned, I'm an exercise physiologist. I've been with the Allsports group for 3 years now. I graduated back in 2019 from Griffith University and have been here at Allsports for the 3 years since. Qualifications-wise, I went through the Bachelor of Exercise Science and then did the Graduate Diploma of Exercise Physiology. And I guess prior to that, during my uni years, was working with some strength and conditioning sides and coaching mainly football teams. Being a football player myself, that was a keen interest of mine and always still is.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
no, you go, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So moving into, I guess, my role as an exercise physiologist, you tend to find that athletic population has taken a back seat per se, and I'm more the chronic disease side of things now, and a lot of musculoskeletal rehab. But yeah, that's I guess in a nutshell.
And why did you decide exercise physiology? What made you become a practitioner?
Yeah, great question. It was through the exercise science degree, and I think yourself, you may have done that. It was that option of that choice of physiotherapy or exercise physiology. And I guess having worked within Allsports prior and through uni, I always had a bit of a keen interest in the exercise physiology side. It was an up and coming career path that really took my interest. And then there was a couple of subjects through that exercise science course that really just clicked with me.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's led me from there.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about Allsports.
Yeah, Allsports is we're quite a large group now. So we've got the physiotherapy side and exercise physiology has come into that. We've got part of the healthier group, My Foot Doctor and eye orthotics, and quite a large, we've got optometry and audiology in that now. But Allsports itself is just I guess it's funny to talk about now. We were originally Queensland, but we're spreading and growing, and it's just a mainly multidisciplinary clinics these days. We've got a lot of different allied health in majority of our clinics, and that really is great for the patients themselves.
Sounds like an exciting kind of workplace to be involved in that multidisciplinary team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned like moving a little bit away from the sports into more kind of chronic conditions. Can you talk to me about your typical patient demographic and what that looks like?
Yeah, a lot of the chronic disease side of it is usually weight management or diabetes, dealing with these sedentary type patients and helping them, I guess, adjust their lifestyles to look after these conditions a little bit better, get them off the medications, get them exercising better and pairing that up with the diet. That would be a large portion. Here at Forest Lake, we get a lot of work cover and that musculoskeletal rehabilitation as well. But you tend to find it's that kind of middle-age bracket that we see a lot of, for sure.
And what do you think keeps your clients returning to you and recommending their friends and family to you?
Oh, I'd like to think it's my clinical knowledge and my
Amazing.
exercise prescription for sure.
Yeah,
Look,
hopefully.
yeah, absolutely. And it's being personable, it's having that patient-centered care. It's using the technologies that we've now got available to us.
Yeah.
And in I guess progressing that exercise rehab side of things from my end,
Yeah,
that
great.
I previously haven't had.
Yes, that's right. And I think we'll definitely dive into those technologies in a minute. Great. Thank you. All right, Denny, tell me a little bit about yourself, your experience and your expertise.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a physiotherapist. I graduated from UQ a little bit before David did. So I graduated back in 2013. And so I've worked in the rehabilitation sector since I graduated, in community and in inpatient rehab. And now I work here at the university in the student-led clinic. I have specialty and expertise mostly around gerontology and neurological rehab. So I loved my rehab placement that I did as a student, and then kind of fell in love with neuro after that. So I've really kind of stuck and geared myself to that.
Yeah, great. And what drove you to become a physio?
Because I was going to be the world's best sports physio and work in a sports team, like most other physios that get into it. I had heaps of physio when I was a young athlete, and so thought I was going to do that, and then got to uni, and ahed about it, and then got out on placement and just completely fell in love with rehab, and with neurological rehab in particular.
Amazing. The beauty of placements, hey? It's amazing how it can the polar
didn't work with the hand therapy placement I did, but definitely with neuro.
Excellent. And talk to me about the outpatient, or the clinic that you're working in.
Yeah, so it's a community-based clinic here at the St. Lucia campus. We see community dwelling, mostly older adults that have neurological aging or balance issues. It's a completely student-led service, so it's quite unique. We run 45 weeks of the year with essentially a completely student-led clinic. So we see about 85 patients or clients a week who have a variety of neurological aging and balance concerns. Yeah.
And so if we think about demographics, are they kind of going into that older demographic, do you find?
Yeah, our client list would definitely skew a bit older. So I think our average age is around about 60, between 65 and 70. But our youngest client is 14, with our oldest client being up into their 90s. So we do see people across the age spectrum, and we typically see our clients for long periods of time. We don't discharge a whole bunch of people, because it's, I guess, similar to David's work. You can treat a neurological condition essentially like chronic disease management.
Totally, like that diabetes stuff, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, a question for you both. What do you feel is the most valuable question that you ask your patients or clients during their initial subjective consultation?
So for me, the most valuable question that, I get to sit and watch the students, and the most valuable question by far and away is, why are you here? It keeps it very goal and patient centered. Because I guess you could go a million different ways with a lot of our clients. They're not in hospital, they've come out, they're living with this potentially quite disabling condition. And so it just allows us to deliver very patient-centered care. So just a very simple, big, open-ended one of why are you here? Yeah.
Perfect. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I use quite a simple one as well, and I've found it's worked well for me. And it's just simply, what do you feel you need? A lot of people come in with it just gives such a great insight into where they're at in their rehab process. So for me, again, being the chronic side of things, they've usually seen a physio and a specialist and an orthopedic surgeon. Like, they've seen so many people before me, and so they've already built this thought process around what they feel they need. But I think that helps me then dictate, okay, how much education do I have to give this patient around why we're moving a certain way, or again, being patient-centered, it puts them in the forefront of building this exercise program from my end. So what they say usually aligns with what I feel they need anyway.
Yeah, perfect.
because they've come forward with it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And is there any kind of patient story that comes to mind that you've had a memorable outcome or treatment that you've implemented?
Yeah, I guess the first one that pops to my mind is an elderly lady that I'm still currently working with, and I've probably been seeing her for a couple of years now, where she originally came into the clinic and she had a wheelie walker, and every time she put any ounce of weight through her right lower limb, she just completely lost all I guess the hip gave way under her. And that was quite daunting for me because this was my first year out. And over the years, we've progressed her to being using a single point stick, or around home using nothing at all, and being able to take stairs and that kind of thing.
Right?
Yeah. And it's incredible to see her mobile again, which is great.
Right. Denny, is there anything there for you?
Yeah, so a very memorable one that's kind of come to fruition this year. We've been working with a man who had a rather devastating incomplete spinal cord injury. And when we started working with him about 4 years ago, he needed 3 or 4 people to help him to even stand up. And this year we completed the 4.5 kilometre Bridge to Brisbane walk with him, and he walked the whole way.
Wow,
so that's pretty cool.
Kind of makes you realize why you become a health professional, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very inspiring. Yeah,
awesome. All right, let's get on to some technology stuff. So we know that technology in clinics can be either hardware or software. The obvious example for my part of this discussion is Nookal. It's a software that covers both administrative and clinical tech roles within your clinic, and basically the same for any practice management platforms out there. We know that you guys use Nookal in an administrative capacity within your clinics to take bookings, manage operations, write clinical notes, that kind of stuff. But what other kinds of technologies do you use in cases that you see? And what technologies help to complement your clinical process?
Yeah, if I start here, right, for me, it's utilizing the Volt equipment. So we've recently been able to get access to a dynamo in clinic here. And I guess, again, from an exercise physiology side, the TeleHab, so the exercise prescription program. They're the big two that I use. TeleHab purely is just an exercise library. It's got an incredible array of exercises, thousands upon thousands in there. And that is something that I can monitor from my end, but from the patient's end, it's this free software that they can get an app on their phone, they can access a website, and it gives them an at-home tutorial on how to perform the exercises I've prescribed.
Right, so you set them up with a program and they're able to access that program at home, hey?
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What about you, Denny? What kind of technology do you use?
So the technologies I'm going to talk about are the VestiCam goggles, which are used for vestibular assessment and rehabilitation. So they're essentially like really portable video goggles that you can use for best practice management of vestibular conditions.
Yeah.
And then the other big piece of hardware that we use at times is our Lightgate system. So it's a mobility body weight support harness that allows us to improve the mobility of people who have like severe mobility impairment.
And are you able to progress them through, like increase the amount of weight that they're kind of having through?
Yeah, and the tech can monitor that and give us some really nice feedback about the level of assistance that they're currently getting with the system. And it also just allows us to, it's an extra set of, it takes away what it could be an extra set of hands. So it helps us to increase the intensity of the rehab that we could give, which a lot of the mobility hardware technologies that are being developed are trying to do. You know, take away the need of 3 physios to help someone walk. Could it be 1 physio driving a Lightgate or a robot or an exoskeleton, that sort of thing?
That's so good. That's so helpful. David, just a question about the TeleHab. Are they, when you set people up with their programs, are you able to, they able to provide some feedback back to you on how they're going?
Yeah, there's quite a few ways they can give feedback. So it's got a video function where they can actually video themselves performing the exercise, which I can then access on my end.
Amazing.
And I can correct technique through that. It's also got ability for RPE and pain thresholds as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'll get them to score, especially from a rehab setting, score the pain. And if a pain that they're reporting is a bit too high for what I'm liking and what I'm wanting them to get from that exercise, then it is a bit of a prompt to me to either probably regress that exercise or get them in for a session and have a chat about why that exercise is putting them in that level of pain.
Yeah, amazing. Gosh, it's so nice to have that two-way feedback, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gone are the days of sending people off with the exercise and then hoping that they're able to perform it at home.
Yeah.
Just one more question. I'm going to bring Nookal back into this. Does Telehab integrate with Nookal?
Yes, the
Yes.
best thing. This makes my life so easy. So straight away, that there's literally a button in the top right corner that I can set a patient up straight away from Nookal in Telehab and build their Vold hub profile. But I think as a practitioner, our bugbear is notes. So, and there's a copy notes function, which essentially is every exercise I put in that program, I hit copy notes, I paste that in my notes that are in Nookal, and there's almost my full note written for me.
Yeah, amazing. So technology really improving your systems and processes, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Let's talk logistical barriers. When implementing some of these technologies, have you guys come up against any logistical barriers?
So many, which is unfortunately some of the rub of using technology. That translation into clinical practice has been really challenging at times. The big one for us is primarily the fact that our students turn over for every 5 weeks. So we have to upskill them in the use of our technologies every 5 weeks. So we've had to put things in place like, really clear systems and processes to make that uptake as smooth as possible, particularly for the hardware that kind of I'm mostly talking about today, because, using things like the VestiCams, using video goggles for vestibular assessment is gold standard best practice. So for us not to be using it would not be evidence-based. So it really kind of puts the onus on us to use it as much as possible. We've tried using activity trackers and things within the clinic as well, and we're getting more traction with some of our clients and using things like Fitbits and activity monitors. But we do hit some logistical barriers. Yeah.
David, do you find any logistical barriers using any technology?
Yeah, the Telehab, I guess, with the older patients is something that they are a bit hesitant to do. It's a new email coming into their inbox that's not from me per se. It's then getting an app on the phone or accessing a website. But I mean, quite simply, there is the option of the paper printout for them. So that's quite easily overcome from that end. I think logistically, the videos themselves are great in particular technique, but if I've made a small variation on an exercise and I'm picking the closest match, sometimes it's then the patient's coming back the next week and going, hey, this is how I've been performing this exercise, and it wasn't quite the variation I was after. But again, that's just a bit of a chat there about, hey, just remember this, or popping a note in for them. So not too much. Yeah.
No, that's good. Definitely gone are the days of like drawing stick figures for your exercises and then photocopying them, right? I mean, much better these days to have the ability to use technology to enable that exercise prescription to occur, which is great. Excellent. So it's also important to make sure that our patients are both comfortable and not overwhelmed by the technology that you choose. Using technology during a consultation is relatively easy, as you can observe and correct patients if they experience any technical or physical issues with that technology. But do you find, I know, Denny, you mentioned this a little bit, do you find that your patients like to use personal fitness technology at home to complement the well-being that you are assisting them with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, it's these Apple Watches and Fitbits, just any smartwatch really, especially with let's say it's the weight management or those types of things, making sure people are hitting a particular heart rate range or how many steps have they done, just tracking and monitoring that loading and the intensity via these bits of equipment. It for me is improves outcomes. So if a patient's got one, I'm jumping straight on it, going, okay, this is where we want to see you. This is the heart rate we want. So it's been really valuable from my end.
Fantastic. Do you find that as well, Danny?
Yeah, and I guess what we have used them for in the past is for goal setting for patients as well, around, maybe a step count goal, or, particularly I think in our Bridge to Brisbane training program that we ran, essentially doing like a marathon training program with some of our clients for 6 months. We set them progressive step count goals or activity goals to complete throughout the week. And using technology is such a valuable way of being able to do that, and then be able to keep people accountable to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's so good that like so many people have these technologies now with them, that we're able as clinicians to tap into that technology. Do you find that it provides an increased level of motivation as well? I guess if there's that accountability, it motivates people to get there, to achieve those goals that you guys are setting for them.
Yeah, I guess, yes, definitely motivation, and then also that accountability as well, and then it prompts that discussion around, well, why hasn't that been happening, and more of those self-management and problem solving discussions that need to happen. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Agree completely.
Yeah. Do you guys use them yourselves?
Yeah. On all day, every day. Yeah. That's it.
I actually don't personally. I've got it's just something that I personally don't tend to use. I need team sports to keep me motivated for my activity. But I know me, so
everyone's individual, right? So for the past couple of years, we've been trying to build and maintain relationships with our clients during the pandemic, right? Which is really challenging. And technology, all of a sudden, we had to embrace this new type of technology to remain connected with our patients. Talk to me about your experiences during that time. How did it impact your clinic? And did you notice anything that really thrived that you weren't really expecting?
Yeah, I guess for me, us as a clinic, and even me personally, we became so busy through COVID. I think people saw us as an outlet away from lockdowns, but also the emphasis on exercise as being one of the avenues that you could get out of lockdown became so real for a lot of people. So, and that, look, that brought forward telehealth consultations. It brought forward us probably jumping to these exercise prescription programs as well. We used to run a group class weekly, and we kind of came up with the idea of, hey, let's just pump out this new program through the app every week so people can do an at-home exercise program that's still run by us. It's the exercises are still selected by us. Yep. And then we kind of jumped on Zoom, and everyone was in their homes doing the program together. So
yeah, great. What about you, Danny?
Yeah, we had very similar experiences. It kind of probably pushed us about 3 or 4 years faster into telehealth than we were expecting. So we went from 100% face-to-face to 100% telehealth in the space of like 4 or 5 days, because our students had to keep coming on placement, so we didn't really have any other option. And the patients really responded quite well to it. They were very keen to return to face-to-face appointments when the option came about, but didn't, when asked, didn't rate it was because that they felt that the telehealth appointments weren't effective, because we were able to show that they actually were. They just really enjoyed the social aspect of, that social interaction with a therapist or with the students in particular, which is what a lot of our clients really value. But yeah, and we primarily used Zoom as well, which was just such an easy platform to be able to use for the clients in particular.
Yeah. Excellent. I've just seen a really interesting question come through on our chat box. And the question is, going back to the personal activity trackers, is there anything negative with this technology, with the tracking? For example, people getting too obsessed by their tracking. Did you guys experience any of that?
Absolutely. I think for me, it's step counts. It's people going, hey, I'm doing 10,000 steps, and it's going, okay, well, yes, you're doing 10,000 steps, but let's think about the other things that we're needing from your exercise program too. So we need the strength, we need the higher intensities. Just getting some steps in doesn't overly mean you're kind of hitting the markers we need. So, and the obsession with hitting a certain number stepwise is a big thing I chat about.
Yeah. Did you, if you found that you had someone that was becoming overly obsessed, would you change that? Would you change the metric?
Yeah, I would then start putting an emphasis on an RPE or something that way. Yep. So going, okay, well, yes, this is great, but let's focus on this for the next fortnight and see how we go here. And absolutely.
What about you, Denny? Did you find anything similar?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I was a bit concerned about. It's actually not something that when you ask patients that they're concerned about at all. When it comes to activity monitors, they actually rate that being able to monitor their level of activity, even through something like a stepped count, is really valuable to them. I guess it's just putting it into the context of, well, why are you monitoring it? Are you monitoring it because it's the only way that you're trying to monitor your exercise? When David's very right that you should be getting this for a good variety of exercise. I think it's potentially more powerful for the people that maybe in my context that do nothing or that do extremely little. So it's like, well, doing 2,000 steps a day, doing 3,000 would be way better than doing 2,000. So maybe for someone who is at the higher level of disability, you might focus a little bit more on the actual step count, because that may be a really good indicator of their level of physical activity.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so it's great that you've both got technology available to you in your clinics, but if we think about a wish list, what's something that you don't currently have available to you that you've either tried or would love to have available to you to use with your patients and clients?
Yeah, look, for me, it's the Vold gear. These guys have come out with some incredible stuff. The Force Specs, the Force Frame. We just had access to the Dynamo, which has been great as well.
Yeah,
I just think putting patients and showing them real-time data, and then showing them, let's say, asymmetries in strength from limb to limb and those types of things. Everyone can connect to a number.
Yes.
And so when you're actually showing them that number in session in front of them, and then you're retesting that down the track and going, hey, look, this has improved. You're now 10% away when previously you were 30% away.
Yes.
I just find the buy-in there is great. And the Vold gear is really allowing people to do that in our short 30-minute sessions that we usually have in private practice.
Yeah, fantastic. What about you, Denny?
David, I don't want to make you jealous, but we actually just procured the Vold gear. So we've just started to use it a little bit more in our clinical practice, and our staff are really interested in trying to implement it, like translate it into our sessions with our populations, which would be different to theirs. My dream equipment would be a zero gravity treadmill and a full 3D gait lab that I could have access to, because in my area of clinical practice, being able to increase the accuracy of our observations to guide treatment decisions using technology would be a game changer if we're able to use it more readily, because at the moment it's incredibly expensive and time poor or like laborsome. So yeah, that would be my absolute dream. So if anybody's got that on the cards, let me know.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, that's a nice lead in kind of segue to what we're going to talk about next. And for those in our audience who are unfamiliar with augmented reality and virtual reality, let's talk about that first. So virtual reality is a completely digital space that you can currently experience with a headset that renders a complete world around you. Okay. Whereas augmented reality combines your current physical space with digital elements rendered on top. So you can currently experience this technology via the cameras on, say, your smartphone. So Danny, you've spoken about using the VestiCam kind of equipment to treat vertigo issues and vestibular stuff. Is this something, do you think maybe that other forms of virtual reality may actually increase vestibular issues?
I'm not sure if there's lots of emerging evidence that they're being used to actually treat vestibular issues, because you can simulate the predisposing environment that might bring on someone's dizziness in a really safe environment using virtual or particularly virtual reality. So it probably won't change. It won't increase people's dizziness. It's actually being used as a way to effectively manage it. And virtual reality is just this untapped Goliath that will come into rehab as a way to increase people's motivation and compliance with rehab. It's really it's going to be the next big thing that happens with that, and machine learning and AI as they build that into rehab tools as well.
There's some exciting stuff happening in that space, I think. And I know that VR and AR are currently used for some neurological treatments as well. And I guess one of the hot topics at the moment, whether you like it or not, is Mark Zuckerberg's kind of metaverse, where he's being able to create these online fully virtual meetings where they can take place, basically. And this looks great for non-physical consultations and has a lot of upcoming potential for mental health practitioners as they get closer to fully photorealistic avatars and representations of facial movements and tics arrays, all of that kind of stuff. I assume that augmented reality has more scope for physical assessments rather than virtual reality. Maybe it's easier to envisage range of motion measurements and physical imbalances with the LiDAR sensors that we currently have on the latest generations of our iPhones. Where do you see the future of physical assessments and treatments going with AR and VR?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting topic. It's something that, you think there's the human track these days. I think that's, again, a bold piece of equipment, and that's then, assessing people through a squat, and is there a hip shift or any balance and those types of things. I think that will become more and more relevant and more used as it's more readily available. Assessment wise in clinic, it will be interesting. It's something that I think will have its place. Will it take over from us as practitioners? I'm hoping not, but
hopefully it won't take over completely, right?
No, but again, I think there's
going to
be
personal touch.
Particular injuries and client bases that are going to really benefit from having a more in-depth movement analysis for sure.
Yeah, great. And I think, Denny, you've kind of spoken. There's a question that's come through here that says, this person says, I think VR and AR is the future. What do the team think are the limitations to adoption currently?
Sorry. You go, David.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I guess for me, it's then the exercise prescription. So it's great. It can assess movement and function, but it's then putting some clinical knowledge behind why you're giving a particular exercise. So are you putting a variation on a lunge to create more internal rotation at the hip and things like that? I think that's where clinical knowledge and us as practitioners are still going to hold our own. I think this equipment and AR, VR is just going to help us, I guess, assess better so we can prescribe better.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely. I think we will be getting there in the not too distant future, which is kind of exciting, I think. Okay, great. This has been really interesting conversation. I think that's all we have time for the official kind of presentation. And I think it's a great kind of segue to open the floor to questions. We've had a couple of questions that we have answered. So if anyone out there in the audience has any other questions, then please submit them via the chat. I do have a question here. Can you please type that piece of equipment so I can get the correct reference? VALD. So all the references are on the screen at the moment as the company that we've kind of referenced a couple of times is VALD, V-A-L-D. Both David and Denny seem to have some positive experiences with them, and there's the BExSc and the Lightgate references there. We'd also love, while questions are coming through, we'd love people's feedback. We just followed the URL here we go, that's been put up on the screen to provide any feedback. And someone for me is going to drop the link in the Zoom chat as well, which I think has been done. Amazing. Excellent. I do have another question here that's come through. How did you drive adoption for the technophobes in your clinic? Yeah, for both practitioners and patients. Interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking of podiatrists in our clinic.
You really need someone to, so much of it is around all the change management strategies. So it first comes with somebody who has to really champion it and really kind of answer the questions of people that might be a bit more of the naysayer. I think the other thing that technology has, and something that kind of has come up in the discussion tonight, is that technology seems like this thing that potentially could replace what we do as like allied health or within health. And I just don't think that's the case at all. I think patients, whenever given the option, are going to most likely choose to interact with a person because there's so much of that personal connection. It's mostly about, can you educate your therapists or your the people that you work with that this is actually a tool to make you more effective.
Yes.
You know, don't just rely on your visual observations, which are historically hilariously inaccurate.
Yes.
Use the technology to actually make your exercise prescription more specific. So totally. I think you just need someone to really champion it and kind of maybe make it seem a bit less scary that tech isn't coming to steal your job, maybe.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's answered very well. And we've just got another question that's come through. How does technology help from a business growth perspective? Is it more consults for a client, do you think, or a patient, more patient referrals, better patient outcome, better patient experience? Gosh, I think pretty much all of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, is it more consults for a patient? Potentially not. Potentially it's less consults for that patient, but that patient is going to have a better outcome. They're going to go and speak to their friends or their colleagues and talk about, hey, this clinic is using all this gear. They put me on these decks that I don't know what I was doing, but the numbers came up, and then they sent me away with an exercise prescription program that the videos are right there and it pops up in front of me. I just think it's a better patient experience, which leads to better outcome. It's more motivation for them to do what we're sending them away with, for sure.
Perfect. And maybe then makes them talk to their friends and family and address other health issues that their friends and family might be having that they didn't realize could be helped in such a positive way. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Perfect. Well, I think that is it. No more questions, which is amazing. So lastly, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening, especially our special guests, David and Denny. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share your wisdom and experience. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. So similar to the words of Truman Burbank, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or good night, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you, everyone. See you later.